As I said, if something were to happen to this man, Marvel would be in big trouble. So we must protect this man at all cost. Uh, Writing great books like Avengers, The Punisher, Avengers Forever and more. Welcome to the program, Jason Aaron.
How's it going?
It's going all right. How's it going with you, sir?
I am doing well. I am doing well. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I don't leave
I'm
the house that much, so
well. That's
something.
good. That's good. So that you're safe. That's all that matters. That's
Right.
we care about your safety, sir. Definitely, especially because of the amazing stories that you produce. And like I made the joke at the beginning that it's like you handle all of Marvel right now, and that's what it kind of feels like, because it feels like whoever is the scribe that's leading the ship for the Avengers is kind of really having to take care of the Marvel universe in a specific way, because they're the ones that kind of up to the big threats and the big events, and you got some, like, it feels like you haven't given them a chance to breathe. They're in dire trouble all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm certainly writing a lot of characters, right? It feels like
Yeah,
I've been writing the entire Marvel universe in some
pretty
way,
much.
and really even, multiple universes at this point, really, with the kind of multiverse stuff we've been doing in Avengers Forever. And yeah, the idea for me was always to make each arc feel big and epic, sort of like an event. Every arc should be an event in and of itself. Just a threat that warrants the attention of a group that's big and powerful. As these Avengers are, and now we're kind of reaching the point where things are getting even bigger than that, right? Like kind of everything I've been building towards really for several years now at Marvel is kind of all starting to come to a head in the pages of Avengers.
Oh my God, yeah. And it's like when I read it, I like to feel like it's dangerous writing. It's like I never know exactly what's going to happen to the characters, and I fear for them because they just keep going up against bigger threats. And it's like that's what I find the most interesting, is that you pull no punches. Like it's like the reader does feel like any of these characters could be offed in any second.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you say that. I mean, that's kind of exactly
Yeah.
what I'm going for, what I enjoy about it. I think you're right to be worried about some of those characters. Um, I That's what I love in terms of when I go to the movies, when I'm reading a comic, whatever I intake. I like something where when I don't know where it's going, right? Like I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where this is leading. I don't know how it's going to end up. That's kind of what I'm going for with Avengers. To make it big and exciting, with a lot of characters, a lot of threats, but also hopefully to pull your heartstrings along the way with what's happening to some of the characters that we've come to enjoy.
What you just kind of described something that I find interesting, like as a for yourself as a writer, like how much of your work is like really concretely pre-planned, or do you just kind of like have a few big beats that you build towards so that there is that kind of uncertainty even in your side of the writing, like not just for us who are reading it, but like from you when you're actually creating the stories?
I mean, it kind of depends for me. Like I always have an idea of where I'm headed and kind of what the ending is, and yeah, like you said, the main beats. Sometimes certain arcs I'll have planned out pretty meticulously. Other ones I'll just kind of have those major signposts I have to hit, and then kind of write my way through the rest. So it kind of depends. I would say all the stuff I'm doing in Avengers right now has been pretty specifically planned out. At some point, I can't remember exactly how long ago it was, but I put together an outline that was basically, this is the rest of my Avengers run. This is every issue. This is every beat. It's what happens to every character. Because it's a lot of ducks you gotta get in a row. A lot of artists we had to line up, including the great Brian Hitch, who just got announced. Is doing the Avengers Assemble Alpha uh, issue that kind of kicks things off in November, I think that is.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of stuff to kind of plan in multiple books. So I've sort of had that outline, which I always like when I do that. I'm always grateful to my previous self for having done that. When I sat down, like this week, I had to sit down to write another issue of Avengers, and I'm like, okay, like what is happening in this? Like, I don't remember where I'm at. Go look at my outline. Oh, okay. I just got to do A, B, and C. Got it. Done. So it's like pat on my back to myself from months ago for doing that work to help me out now.
Yeah, I got to imagine it must be quite daunting at times, like with the number of projects that you work on, at any given time, like to try and keep, all those
And all in your
lanes.
head, yeah.
Yeah, like it must, like, to have that kind of signpost is very helpful. I got to assume at that point.
Yeah. I mean, that's been my life. I want to say for like 15 years now. I mean, I've kind of been always been writing multiple books. And when you're writing multiple ongoings, you're also writing those books out of order sometimes because you're having to write for multiple artists. So the, I mean, I would say that's not like if I was going to pick, how would I like to write comics? That's probably not the way I would pick to do it, but that's the way I've been doing it for a long time. I saw recently where Tom King said he starts a project and he writes the whole thing, and he from start to finish he's done and moves on to the next thing. And I thought, wow, I'd love to try that sometime. And that's one of my goals, but I've most people I know are, do not get to do it that way. You're always having to jump. But I also think I enjoy part of that. It's kept me from, I never have time to get bored, like if I'm like, okay, I've been working on this one thing for a while, like being able to jump from Avengers to Punisher, like those two books could not be more different, right? So I think I always like having something very different to kind of jump to. I've also been working on a new creator-owned book that'll be announced very soon. So
Awesome.
I feel like I've always kind of got different irons in the fire, or just able to sort of flex different creative muscles, I guess, which I've enjoyed.
Yeah, totally. We got an email in from Shelly C. Just a reminder, folks, that if you want to email us, you can email us at geekhardshow@gmail.com. Shelly C. writes, Jason is pure genius. End of story. Andrew, you are right. If he leaves Marvel, it is all over for them. And I'll read the rest of the email when we get to our movie review later. But thank you, Shelly, for your email. But yeah, you brought up that you're working on a new creator-owned thing, and that's the one thing that I look at, because I know with like Marvel, the deadlines are crazy, and you got so many projects, and there's so many different moving parts and different creators involved, and of course, you're building up to this Avengers Assemble, like big arc, and so event books and all that sort of stuff. How do you schedule in the time to work on your career-owned stuff? Because it's like, I know that the big leagues can be pretty demanding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer is to that. I mean, I think there's always a lot of juggling and scheduling with everything I do, and creator-owned stuff is hard sometimes, and that you got to kind of make everything line up in terms of who do you want to do this book with, where do you want to do it, well, what's that person's schedule like? It takes kind of months really to line stuff up, and then kind of once the book starts happening, things happen quickly. So like this book I'm doing right now that I've written 3 issues. I'm working on issue 4. It's something that's been in my head for years, literally for years. And then something that changed radically in the midst of the last 3 years, in the midst of the pandemic. And then something the people I'm doing it with, been talking to them about it for years. So some of the stuff you just kind of have to plan, I think, for a long time, or just kind of always be working on that. I mean, I'm beyond the stuff about that I'm working on that's coming out. I sent in a pitch for something last week. I'm talking to artists about other creator-owned books. I'm lining up a lot of different things that you may not hear about, you may not see in physical form for months or for years, but you kind of have to always be hustling in that way, I guess, to line stuff up, which is, I don't know, it's not my favorite part of the job, but it's like the necessary part of the job,
Right. And that way there's never a dull moment either. So
No, there's certainly never a moment without something to do.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's good.
I was gonna say, like, what do you sleep about 5-10 minutes a day? Like, is that that's how this works for you now? Like,
No, I gotta have my sleep or I don't function well at all. I would not write any comics. So yeah, sleep is a necessary part. I lose like not being able to watch TV shows. Like I miss out on that. I feel like everybody watches more TV than I do. Or sometimes, reading for pleasure. Like I miss being able to do more of that someday. Someday I'll
Yeah.
get back to that.
Someday you'll get that chance. You'll get like a nice break for about 20 minutes. You can fit it in there. It'll be great.
Yeah, I've always thought I should learn to play the banjo,
Oh
but
yeah?
I feel like I've got the beard for it. I just don't have the banjo skills. So someday maybe I'll have that free time.
There you go. And for the time being, you can get a banjo and every now and then just put it in your lap so that it feels like, yeah, I look like a guy
Right.
who plays a banjo.
Take a selfie of myself.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
No.
just as good. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Now you brought up the sprawling epicness of the Avengers story right now that is crossing through times and dimensions, and we get to see a lot of different versions of characters we know from other dimensions, like remixes of these characters. And I got to say, the one that's really, really catching fire, and did not mean for that to be a pun, but the Ghost Ronin. That is like reading the issue of the Ghost Ronin. I was just like, oh my god, this should be like a multi-part anime series. Like it's just such an interesting, because when you think about the Ghost Riders over the years, you never think of one that zen, And so, what was it like?
Right.
Where did the Ghost Ronin come from?
Really, the idea with this whole arc, this time travel arc, was kind of to do different genres with each issue. So let's do a western, let's do a samurai story, let's do a war story. So it's really just that, just having fun, issue to issue. Like you said, I wanted each glimpse of these characters to leave you wanting more, to feel like, oh yeah, I would love to, do a book of this guy or a book of that guy. But for now, it's just this arc where it's giving you these glimpses of, pockets of Marvel history that we've never seen before, and getting, I think Javier Garron, giving him the chance to show off of how amazing he is, that he can nail kind of each one of these genres. I thought he did amazing stuff in that Ghost Ronin issue, and yeah, it's like, as much as I love writing tortured ghostwriters, I've written plenty of those. Kind of started my career writing tortured ghostwriters. I liked the idea that this guy, picks up these swords and doesn't look at it as a curse. Like to anybody else, it would be a curse, but he really carries them in this really noble, way. And also, I just love samurai movies, so it gave me a chance to like, well, I can watch some of those and it'll be work related research, right?
There you go.
always so there's always a way to to put it's like your taxes, you find a way to make it
Find a way to write it off.
Yeah, that's it.
You're writing
Right?
off your time to watch that. Yeah.
But it really was. I'm not lying.
Yeah.
So Jason, like when you're talking just then, it made me think about the fact that you have written so many stories, so many characters, but also in so many different genres. Is there a genre that you haven't touched on yet that you would like to, dip your toe in?
Yeah, I've never written a straight Western before, and I'm a huge fan of Westerns. I mean, I do, like the very next issue of Avengers is actually a Western, but it's, Western with the Star brand and the Phoenix. So I would love to do a straight take on a Western. I don't know what that is. It's not like I'm walking around with that story in my pocket. I do think it's, I think in the wake of Unforgiven, it's sort of hard to think like, well, what do you do? That movie was so good and felt like the definitive word on Westerns to a certain extent. But I would love to do that at some point. I'd love to do another war story. The first book I ever did, The Other Side, was a Vietnam War story, and I've kind of never really gotten back to that. I mean, it's not like the charts are filled with best-selling westerns and war story comics. It's not like the world is clamoring for more of those, but I think I'd definitely like to scratch those itches at some point.
Oh, definitely. We got another email in, this one from Madden W. I'm going to hold off again the review of the movie that we're reviewing later and just read the rest of it. Love the old man. Somebody mentioned my name. And Jimmy the short order cook. Hey, how's it going? Jason A writes some awesome shit. So there you go. Another big fan out there. Oh man, I always find it funny when we have writers on the show and we get responses like that. It's like they bring in their premium writing to compliment this guy. He writes good shit. I love him.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
totally. We appreciate it too. Thank you so much for writing in, Madden. But I want to switch gears here and talk a little bit about the Punisher because, of course, probably one of my favorite Punisher stories of the past like 15, 20 years was your Punisher Max series, which really took it to some places I didn't think it was going to go. And it really like it got into the core of Punisher. This one is so interesting because of the whole idea of like, be careful what you wish for. The agenda of the Hand and the agenda of Punisher don't really fully meet. And each one is trying to use the other. And now it seems like Frank Castle has bit off more than he can chew. So what was it like creating this new obstacle for Frank?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it kind of goes back to what you're saying. Like what I was doing in Punisher Max was a lot of it was about figuring out who is this guy, what are the things about him that maybe don't necessarily make sense, and what kind of the myth of who he was. With that story in particular was kind of this idea of like when did he become the Punisher, you know? And I think when you to me, Garth Ennis wrote the Bible on the character and with all the stories that he did, and one of those is Born, where we, saw Frank in Vietnam and you see like, okay, he's that guy already, right? He's not wearing the skull on his chest, but he is that dude. So how does that dude come home and flip that switch off and just live a life of, baseball games and backyard barbecues? Like there would have to be some struggle there.
Mm,
And so that was really a driving point of Punisher Max. With this story, it's some of that, but in a different way. So it's yes, we changed the symbol on Frank's chest. We changed kind of how he's doing what he does. He's still fighting the same war he was fighting before, but he's using the Hand as a weapon in that fight, and in the hopes of, as he says, of actually ending the war because he's got back, his family in some sense, right? This is the
yeah.
thing that set him on this path. That's the story. This is the thing that he's, the people he's been fighting to avenge. Okay, he's got his wife back. He needs to protect her after not protecting her in the moment when she needed it most. Now he needs to do that now. To do that, he's I'm gonna end this war. Gonna use the Hand to do it, right?
Mm,
Yes, it's not quite as simple as all that. Given the changes of Frank's circumstances, the way he looks, to me, this is still a story about who is this guy? Who has this guy always been? In ways we've seen, in some of the, we're also showing parts of his history we've never seen before, but it's still to me like what has the Punisher always represented? Who is this character when you boil him down? That's what this story is. It's not just about, seeing him run around with ninjas and giving him a different symbol. Those are trappings of it, those are parts of it, but it's really about all the things I find most fascinating about this character in good and bad ways. And I would say of stuff I'd done at Marvel for the last several years, this is one of the things I'm most proud of that I think has come together in the most perfect way in terms of the art team we've got on this with Jesus and Paul and the great Dave Stewart on covers, or I mean on colors. I'm just really, really proud of this entire package and excited for people to see where it goes because I think if you kind of think you know where it's going, my guess is you probably don't.
And that's the best part of it. The fact that I look at it and go, I really have no idea how the hell Frank's going to get out of this one. And yeah, there's a lot of factors in there that haven't been in a Punisher story before. So it's really interesting to see the way he reacts. I always enjoy you give a very fresh take to Frank Castle both times that you've written them, and that's what I really appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those characters I'm fascinated by, but also terrified of. You know,
Yeah.
it's certainly he would not be on my list of Marvel characters I'd want to have a beer with, right? Or that I would ever want to meet, or that
Yeah.
I would want to exist in the first place.
Right.
But I can't help, keep coming back to him, keep being fascinated by who he is and how did he become this way, right? It's not as simple as, well, I mean, the very simple version is he was a guy who went off and fought in the war and came home and his family got killed and he flipped the switch and he set him off on this path of vengeance. I think that's a simple story, but not a very true story. And we're trying to do the more interesting version of that. And I think if you're reading it so far and you think you know what that story is, you don't yet. You haven't seen all the pieces.
Right.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
man.
that's one of the hallmarks of the great Punisher stories is that it's not just about that surface level elements of who the character is and has been or could be. It's all the layered stuff like you're talking about. Is that's what makes the character interesting, which unfortunately a lot of people seem to miss when they start putting him into the hero worship category, which I never understand.
Yeah, those fans out there that say, "Oh, I wish he was real, and I'd love to have a beer with him." I'm like, "Okay, buddy. Well, I'll talk to you later. Have a good one." All right.
Well, I mean, I certainly wish fulfillment is a big part of Frank Castle, right? Of that idea of he's the guy who stands up and does the things that nobody else can do. Like he's going to take care of things in a way where he'll see justice through. He won't have to worry about all the problems that can cloud judgment and cloud justice. But I mean, there's all kind of he's a Vietnam vet in his original creation, who was sort of a bit of the cliche of the psycho vet, and then in the 80s he very much became this idea of the 80s vigilante, where we saw a lot of those in that period. So Frank kind of has all this stuff mixed up in him. So I think with this, I'm trying to do a story that, again, is that same guy, but takes it in ways that are, I think, new and interesting, but also paying respect to all those stories that have come before.
Exactly. There's more to Frank Castle than Death Wish. That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
As much as I love Death Wish.
Yeah. It is for what it is. It's fine. But oh man. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the program tonight, Jason. It's been a delight talking with you. Love your work over the years. Looking forward to your next creator-owned project when that gets announced, but also looking forward to Avengers Assemble. Is there any tease you can give about what's coming?
Well, I think I can talk about that alpha issue drawn by the great Brian Hitch, and which, the guy I've wanted to work with for a long, long time. That's a fight that's been literally a million years in the making as we finally get to see the prehistoric Avengers face to face with our modern day Avengers. So you can imagine what that's going to look like, drawn by Brian Hitch. It looks amazing.
Fantastic. Well, looking forward to that. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have yourself a great night, sir.
Thanks for having me.